Welcome, everybody, to the Mansfield Buzz.
Welcome to Mansfield Buzz, Jordan Hurdy in the mix, spotlighting local stories, every episode's a fix, unearthing unique gems, what makes them shine. Tune in, get ready, we're diving into their grind. With Jordan's questions, we reveal what's at the core. Hurdy's tech wizardry, bringing stories to the fore. Together we create, star showcasing what's unique. Mansfield Buzz, where content creation sleek. Calling all business owners and customers to the scene. Discover authentic gems, find the best you've ever seen. Meet the faces behind each unique space. Trust in their stories, find community in this place.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Mansfield Buzz. It is Thursday at 2 o'clock. You know what that means? Every Thursday is Buzz Day.
Did you come up with that?
I just made it up sitting here in the chair. I was going, how am I going to finish this? So there you go. But listen, guys, thank you for being here. Just a friendly reminder, because we need to say this at the top. Next week is the 18th of December. It'll be our last show before next year. And then Jordan and myself will have a little vacation break, and we'll be back on January 8th. So we're going to ask you guys to grab some archives, and I'm pretty sure we'll share some of those back out. Or maybe premiere something. We can put a premiere up or something on day of, so you guys can get notified of that. But in the meantime, we want to welcome everybody to it. Our host, both of us are hosts, and that is Jordan Huff and Hurdy Burke. Tyler's our guest. We're going to talk to him about public. I had 10 people, Tyler, ask me today, what does a public adjuster do? They're kind of confused between the insurance and kind of, you know what I'm saying? So you're going to
He's baiting you. Don't answer that question yet.
Don't answer yet, but we're going to tease a lot of people with that today, because a lot of people are just going, so what exactly, how do they work between all this, right?
Yeah.
And it's a license. Well, it's a licensed position in Texas. That's why I put his license number up. So it's important that it has to be a licensed position. We're going to talk about that. Yes. But anyhow, guys,
if you hang on to the end of the episode, we'll tell you how that can actually
exactly
some money.
Exactly. Now, with that said, we are at YouTube. We're Mansfield TX Buzz. And what we asked you guys to do, of course, if you haven't subscribed, do that first. We're up to 225 now, which is great for a local show. And I really think we'll be at 300 by the middle of summer, Jordan. And then Jordan and I are talking about some other things down the pike we'll be introducing to you guys later, which is really cool. But we're still averaging in that 1,000 to 2,000 views per 28 days. We're still averaging close to 25, 30 watch time hours. And so we're really excited about that. But also, if you don't mind, right under the video on YouTube, there's a little thumb. It looks like this. Click on that, because that helps the YouTube algorithm. At least that's what I've been told, Jordan, forever. And everybody somebody says that, and then if you do it, apparently it's supposed to help. But I've read nothing anywhere it ever said that really did. Just so you know.
Well, I mean, it's a button
but it makes people show that they like it. You can comment with this if you like. We'll make you famous. If you want to ask Tyler a question, or if you want to comment or say hi, we'll post that up during the show. So the next segment is our little rewind section. So we're going to go back last week and do a little 60 to 90 second blurb with Sam Maddox. And so we'll be right back.
Quick rewind, keep it tight. Highlights, prime to ignite. Catch the vibe, feel the rush. Previously on the Mansfield Buzz.
And then I was like, well, hold on a sec. If you look back over the past 100 years and you look at all of the companies that were founded and are in the Fortune 500, every single one of them were founded during a downturn. So if they are able to overcome the market, if they're able to overcome circumstances,
right,
then all I have to do is take responsibility for me. Because in the end, we've all heard that saying, you're either in a storm, you're either getting out of a storm, or you're going into a storm. And what most of the people don't want to admit, and I was one of them, is that about 95% of those storms, those are man-made. We did that to ourselves. Yeah. We always like to say it's someone else. And so when you sit there, the one thing you can always say, whenever something bad is happening, just tell yourself, I am the storm. I'm the reason why this is happening.
Yeah. So Sam, so what you're saying is stop the blame game and start looking at yourself, right?
Yes, look in that accountability mirror because it's all you.
There you go. So that was Sam, a great executive coach for small businesses, and we were happy to have him. So we like to go back and highlight some of our past week. Now, the fun part is, Tyler, we're going to do a little icebreaker with you. Jordan's going to start with it, but I do have the joke of the day coming up. So I just want to make sure Jordan is alerted after the icebreaker that I have something. I have a little story I need to tell, and then we'll get into the questions with you. So
You want to know how I know you're dyslexic, Herdy?
Why?
Because you want to do the icebreaker with our guest, and they go to a separate story.
Well, no, I want to do the icebreaker, but then before you start asking the questions, I want to tell something that happened the other day, and
He's
try
trying
to
to
keep
steal
a
my
straight
spotlight.
face. Okay, you want me to say that right now? Would that help you?
Go for it.
So Yvonne was looking for she got her new office and she was looking for a coat stand to go in her office. And she sent me to several antique malls. And I made a mistake when I walked in one because I asked the guy what's new.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's great. That's
Sorry.
great.
I don't have anything to say. That's special.
Well, I do have one to come back at you.
Okay.
What do snowmen call their kids?
Ooh.
Children.
Children.
That's a good one too.
I love it, man. We got to do more of these, Jordan, just for fun. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Because,
I'm a bottomless pit, dude.
Yeah, me too. I love
How
it.
do you memorize them? Like, I want to be the class clown, but I can't memorize the jokes. Like,
Well, in my case, I had a snowman right in front of me, so I'm like, wait, that reminds me.
So what I do, Tyler, is generally I take the one-liner and try to figure out a story around it so I don't forget, because it sounds like I'm getting ready to tell a story, and it's hard to keep a straight face at the end because I know that you either get it or you don't right away. So
right.
just trying to make it a story. So cool. So icebreaker section, Jordan. Sorry about that.
Yes.
So I'll straighten that out. We'll do the joke day banner coming next. Okay, it's all good.
Now, Tyler's your icebreaker. Bonus points if you end up with a joke.
All right.
So, airborne. Let's tell us a little bit about it, because apparently, you come in with some impact to your stories.
A little bit. I guess I'm a fly guy, right? Is that decent? Okay.
Yeah, that was good.
No. So long story short, I was growing up and I did not do well in college. I had way too much freedom at first. And my dad said, hey, listen, you've got two options. You can move out or you can join the military. So I said, okay, well, he was airborne, so I've got to take it a step further. And I signed up to be an airborne ranger, God's right hand. And so I joined the military, joined the Army, and signed up to be an airborne ranger. And during basic, my drill sergeant, the biggest guy there, which I thought I was pretty big, and I was tiny, scrawny at the time, but he's tall, he's huge, he's just jacked. Did push-ups till I got tired watching, like it was that kind of guy. And he took all of us over to the side, and we, after chow, where I had to eat double rations because I was too small. We would do push-ups and sit-ups and stuff, just normal military workout, and then we had to go do the airborne workout, and that was a beating every single time. So, I guess long story short, I started out trying to be Mr. Hula, as you could maybe imagine, and ended up getting hurt jumping off of a building doing an airborne training exercise. It's called a parachute landing fall, and I did not do it right. And so I didn't get to do all the fun stuff, but I still beat my dad because I deployed. So I spent my entire first year of marriage in Afghanistan.
Wow. Well, thank you for doing that. We appreciate your service. Yes, sir.
It was fun. I did a lot of really random things.
but not jumping off of buildings anymore.
No more building jumps. We had steak for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 3 days because we ordered the wrong rations. That was an interesting one. It was, ridiculous stuff.
That's
What
awesome.
you can imagine would happen when you send a bunch of guys to a sandbox.
Yeah, that also explains you didn't go into roofing. Maybe a little bit of a trauma there.
Yeah. I always knew I could do it this time. I can jump off that roof and land properly.
funny.
That's awesome. All right, let's get into the weeds here. I'm excited about this one because, as Herdy mentioned earlier, I don't think anybody truly understands what you do. There's so much confusion in it, and people need to know about it because this, like what you do, is in the best interest of the people. Like if you use insurance, you have to know about this.
Absolutely.
So let's go from the beginning, because you've been working on the in the claims and estimation space for for how long?
About a decade now. I started in roofing in late 2014, early 2015, and
You jumped off the roof wrong.
exactly, yeah. And it kind of started there. Learned what construction was and moved into insurance adjusting. So I guess, for lack of a better term, I started as an independent adjuster and kind of made my way up the ladder there. I got, I guess, a funny story. When I first started, had no idea what I was doing. I was in college online at the time, and I was like, hey, I need something because this roofing thing isn't working out for me.
Right.
I love to sell, but I don't love to sell anything that is not in their best interest. And sometimes it's not their best interest to file a claim.
Yeah.
So I let a few things go. But that said, I got the phone call. Hey, yeah, we'll accept you. Go ahead and head on down here. This was Hurricane Irma in 2017. And I got up after doing online college for, I don't know, I think it's like 4 hours that I had to do that night. And, kind of similar to this, you're just face to face with your classmates having a conversation. And then that was after a full day of work. I called up my boss, said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and do something different, and drove the 16 and a half hours to Florida that night. It was a very long day, and proceeded to work 20-hour days for several months, and helped a lot of people, and which is where I kind of fell in love with it. So that's where I guess I got my start really as an adjuster, kind of moved up the ladder from there.
Okay. And so I wanted to ask you, for the because not everybody knows, and you have it here pretty well. Like people have, when they hear public adjuster, they assume insurance adjuster and public adjusters, they assume that's all the same. But there's a big difference in it. So can you walk us through? Because I don't think a lot of people actually understand the terminology.
Absolutely. The truth is that there's not much difference between myself and a independent adjuster or a carrier's adjuster. It's just which side do you work for. So if you think about it, you go into an insurance claim, and not that everything should be a battle, but after the story from the military, this is on my mind. Every side has their team, and their side is that the goal is to protect the person that they're working for, right? And so your carrier adjusters are great. I do not want to paint them out to be terrible people. However, adjusting works in the gray area. Otherwise, it would all be policy black and white. If your policy says that we do pay for this, then we do. If it says that we don't, then we don't, period. Okay. If it's gray, though, which is what a lot of contracts, a lot of policy is written on, that's when an adjuster steps in. So an adjuster's job for the carrier is to make sure that carrier doesn't pay out more than they should. But that's a very wide gap. My job is to make sure that the customer gets every cent they need to put their home back together after a loss, after a fire, a flood, or in some situations, a roofing claim. Mm-hmm. So I guess the key difference between myself and, say, someone working for the carrier is they're trying to defend the carrier's position, and I'm trying to defend the homeowner position. Most of the time we get called in for kind of like concierge service, like, hey, the guys, right? Somebody who can do XYZ. That's really where I shine.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing is like, so essentially one tries to save the insurance as much money as possible, and the other one is trying to get the claim for as much coverage as possible.
Yep.
And they're both kind of, facing each other. Could you tell me which one's which?
Absolutely. So the public adjuster works for the public. So I work for the homeowner or the property owner or the stakeholders, what they like to call them, sometimes in large commercial and industrial situations.
Mm-hmm.
I work for the person who actually holds the policy. The carrier's adjuster works for the person who created the policy and said, hey, sign on the dotted line. You don't get a choice to change anything. And so that's the big difference.
So let me interject here. Does that put you into mediation role sometimes between you and the carrier? Do you guys sit down and actually hash that out at a table, or with the customer is present, or how does that work?
So the fun thing about being a public adjuster is that almost like a lawyer is the representative for their claimant, I guess.
Okay.
I am the representative for the insured. And so depending on my agreement with the insured, I can operate as them. And so they don't even have to be at the table anymore. They can go about their business. They can handle whatever they've got going on. Oftentimes my clients sometimes run businesses or own businesses, or they have a lot going on, kids in school, kids in sports, and they just have too much going on to kind of add this massive fire claim or this small water leak to their plate. And so I can handle things in their best interest directly with the carrier, with the insurance company.
Gotcha.
And so we do oftentimes sit across the table, or nowadays with this digital world, much like we are here, we'll have a video chat. So
yeah. Okay, got it.
And so you going back to a little bit of the earlier story, you started in the adjusting world. You actually worked as an independent adjuster, and then ended up working for insurance companies.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually worked for the villains for a little while.
I did. It's funny. I'm not one to badmouth people or companies in general, but I worked for one in particular, and I thought it was going to be a change of pace after being an independent. I was going to be what's called a staff adjuster. Those are the people who work for one carrier instead of, for lack of a better term, the first person to hire them, or the highest paying, almost like a contract hitman. That's what the independent adjuster is sometimes. Like, hey, who's going to pay my bills the best? But as a staff adjuster, I had a job. I worked for one carrier, and 3 months into that, I realized I don't like this. And so I transitioned from that very quickly into doing what's called estimating work for contractors.
Cool.
So that's where I got kind of rounded out my experience a little bit more.
Yeah,
Okay.
I bet.
And so you mentioned that one was called a staff adjuster. So you worked for the company. An independent adjuster works for different carriers.
Mm-hmm.
And the public adjuster is the one that works for the homeowners, the business owners, what it's called, the public.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can anybody hire a public adjuster, or does it have to be stipulated inside a contract?
Anybody that has a active insurance policy and claim number. Really,
okay, got it.
Kind of key. If you don't have insurance, then I can advise you, but I really can't help you.
No, I mean, if they do have insurance, right? They've got contracted insurance for water, whatever. You can represent them, period, right? As long as they have an insurance policy. Okay, cool. Yeah, I know that that's probably a little bit of extra fee for them, but you're being a good go-between for them for stuff they may not get or settle on.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that surprises me about this space, and it's funny because I never even knew about this or that this was possible, but then now it seems obvious. Let's say you're in a legal battle, right? And there's somebody with a lawyer coming in, you're going to get your own lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
You have an insurance claim, and the insurance company sends their adjuster. I mean, they're incentivized to, work with, just protect their employer. And in the flip side, where's your protection?
Right. And I'll tell you what really sealed the deal on that carrier that I worked for as a staff adjuster is, I had at the time, I had, 5-6 years of being an adjuster independent. And I wrote for, as I've always have, what makes sense, what I can justify with photos. But what really kind of soured my taste in it was, hey, listen, we understand you can justify replacing this, that, or the other, or, oftentimes in a situation where you're painting inside the home, you want to put drop cloths down to make sure that the floor doesn't get paint on it. You want to make sure that you cover furniture, things like that. Maybe take wall plates off of the wall. And the carrier that I work for just flat out said, no, we don't do that. That's standard operating procedure. We do not cover those things.
Wow.
And so the issue is that just shifts more of the financial burden back onto the homeowner.
Absolutely.
Onto the policyholder. And there is definitive need for it, especially when you talk to a painter, because they're going to do it regardless. So either they're going to charge the homeowner or they're going to take less money. And that's the hard part. You want your contractors to take enough money to make sure they're there in 5 years when you might need them again, or when you have a warranty claim in a couple of months. Hey, we had an issue. We need you to come back out here and fix my pipe again because it seemed like it leaked. Well, if they're not there because they've been, shafted by the carrier so much, then you're kind of SOL at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I've heard the horror stories, and it's, not all carriers are quote unquote evil, but some of them you could, use strong words.
There's a couple of them out there. It's interesting in Texas with the way that weather kind of is trending. We're on this cycle, and every couple of years it gets a little worse. Every couple of years it gets a little bit better. If you look at that, this kind of roller coaster of how weather patterns are, then we're kind of in a worse position right now.
Yeah, we are.
It was a light year for hail, but we'll see how it looks for freeze. But a couple of years ago during Snowmageddon during COVID, that was a rough one. Pipe freezes everywhere.
Yeah, we're like 4 degrees. Like we're not built for that.
No, I did not build Texas structures for that kind of weather.
No, and they don't put pipes far enough in the ground, deep enough so they freeze up really quickly, and outdoor faucets don't get covered like they should, and people aren't prepared. And bye.
Exactly.
I think I had a picture of my arm.
So let's talk a little bit about that too. Not necessarily Snowmageddon, but just like, I know you've handled some large commercial floods, total losses for residential fires. So if you've seen the gamut, what would you say is one of the biggest surprises for homeowners when they go through this process?
One of the biggest surprises, this is funny. I've been married coming up on 15 years, and I still cannot find the words to explain to my wife why a homeowner has to pay their deductible. They think, well, they took it out of the check, and I've had this conversation hundreds of times at this point. She used to ride with me when I was doing insurance adjusting. And that was one of the topics that we had a conversation on, just trying to reach common ground there. But one of the biggest things that they don't recognize is that they have to pay their deductible. And in Texas specifically, which is, where my license is right now, if you don't, you can come up on criminal charges actually. Especially if your contractor is saying that they'll cover it, they can get in trouble. We've had a couple of contractors, especially when they implemented that back in 2019 and 2020, that are in prison because they were covering deductibles, saying that they, the homeowners had paid it, and then recovering that what's called depreciation after the fact, and that's considered insurance fraud. And so that's one of the big things. I don't know. I guess the time that it takes for a project to get done is simultaneously faster than you could do it yourself and slower than you think you can do it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I've had entire houses that burned down, and you talk to the contractor and say, oh yeah, this is an 18-month project. And it takes every bit of 18 months. And the homeowner's like, well, it should be like a 4-month project, right? So,
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that would, you could help with them on the time schedule too, right? By going through what needs to be done on the property like that. Now,
Absolutely.
does your public adjusting fall under any kind of foundation, or is that basically more out of the pocket for because most insurance don't cover foundations, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Most carriers, if you want a foundation a policy to cover foundation, it is special and separate.
And huge deductible.
Exactly. Because this is Texas. We have a weird soil here where it shifts.
Yeah.
You essentially live in
Never put enough
rafts that
water
float
into it.
on mud water.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
But
but
I'd
yeah,
ask,
I can help with when there are legitimate foundation coverage concerns.
Mhm.
But oftentimes, the truth is that foundation just isn't typically covered. But they
Mhm.
also, like, even that cracking isn't something that that's usually something you can manage as a homeowner. They have tons of really great programs for
Right.
financing that or
Right.
taking care of it. So
good.
And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about you mentioned the timeline is sometimes a surprise. And I had this conversation with you before where you brought up that sometimes carriers will use that time as a weapon against paying out claims. Can you
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about that?
yeah, especially as a public adjuster, my entire fee is contingent. Meaning, if you don't make enough, make any money as a on this claim, then you don't have to pay me anything. And so it's much like lawyers. You don't pay if
Wow.
you don't win.
Mhm.
Well, I've got a decent track record, but it's still, my average is like 9 months to the point where I actually get that final paycheck. And I
Mhm.
don't usually take my fee up front because I want you to actually get your money going to build the house.
Right.
So
Wow.
I want you
Wow.
back in your home as quick as possible. That's the
Yeah.
key. So
We said
Wow.
one of the challenges there is the big carriers know that the public adjusters are waiting on that, and so they can basically outpocket you by
Mhm.
delaying on purpose the process.
absolutely, they do the same thing with lawyers, but they will drag a claim out, and just like in negotiation, the first person to talk loses. Well, the first person to get frustrated in a claim loses. So a large part of what I do is just keeping a level head and biding my time, being consistent. But sometimes, especially if you don't have a PA kind of helping you calm down, homeowners just get frustrated, accept what they've been given, and move on. And carriers know that if they can push that, then they don't need to pay that extra, 20, 50, sometimes multi-million dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at that point, yeah, you are a liability to them.
Mhm.
So, at what point do you advise homeowners and business owners call you or call a public adjuster? Like, is it only when things start to go sour, or how early would be a smart move?
So honestly, if you've got something that you're concerned about, if you're a homeowner and you're sitting there, your whole house just burned up, call me right away. If you realize, hey, we had a pipe burst and a lot of our home flooded, give me a call when you get a chance. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because the point is that I'm going to have a conversation with you and tell you how this should go. And if it's not going that way, at that point, for sure, hey, let's go ahead and move. Let's move forward with working together. But I spoke with a lady the other day. As a public adjuster, we can handle any kind of property, real or personal, and sometimes that includes vehicles.
Mhm.
This lady was having the run around with her carrier, and they wanted to replace a vehicle that she didn't want to replace. She couldn't replace it with the cost, and if she did, she was on a fixed income, and she would end up having to pay more with the
Right.
insurance rate or interest rates, and insurance would go up. And so she was just having a really hard time with this. And so I spoke to her for 45, 50 minutes. I didn't charge a dime. That's just part of it. But it was a consultation. You know what I mean? And ultimately, she'll probably never be my client. There's not really a whole lot of room, especially on the automotive side,
Mhm.
for a public adjuster, because you just have to pay out of pocket. The way that it works is a little different than the way that it works for a home. So
Mhm.
there's no overhead and profit. There's nothing like that baked into
Right.
there's no general contractor for a automotive policy.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, but if it's anything like related to your business or your home, I'm of the opinion that you would want to have somebody on your side of
Mhm.
the argument, because as you mentioned it, like it's little things like that, like right, it's like we're not going to cover removing the outlets, covering the furniture, like they're going to nickel and dime anything and everything they can, and it can add up to substantial costs. Not to mention sometimes they will not cover like an equal replacement. They would just, I know there's a lot of things where it might seem like you're being provided a comparable, coverage, but you're not.
Right. I'll tell you, I was reading an interesting statistic, and I hesitate to say this because I didn't go verify every source, and now it's going out there. But this statistic was saying that the change from remove and replace on your shingles for your house to tear off and replace was saving carriers over $1 million a month
Wow.
in each region. So
Wow.
it's just that shift. And the truth is that it's pennies, maybe 20, 30 cent different, if I'm not mistaken, between the two. And they're doing that as well as about a dozen other things, especially in roofing alone. In Texas, your roof will last really no more than 8 years on average,
Mhm.
Across the north central Texas region. It's funny, you'd think that the Windy City is known for its wind. Well, it's not. We have the windiest weather here in Texas. We also have the most hail over populated areas here in north central Texas.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, so then let's go a little bit deeper in the weeds in here, because as we're talking about, in a lot of the property damage cases, the damage gets underestimated,
Mhm.
and that just begins a whole snowball effect.
Absolutely. And oftentimes, what carriers have started doing, especially since COVID really changed that time period. And it wasn't necessarily COVID as much as it was the years leading up to it, but it
Mhm.
changed the insurance world pretty dramatically. During Irma, there were 4 named storms that hit the U.S. coast that season alone. We had the big one in Houston, which I'm drawing a blank on, but it flooded all of Houston.
Yeah.
And then not even a month later is when Irma hit Florida, and that was I want to say it was like a mile wide eye of the storm,
Yeah.
and it covered basically the entire state of Florida.
Jeez.
Hurricane Irma did, and it didn't do damage across the entire thing. There were some areas where it was light, it's like a breezy day sort of thing, but there were some areas where it just decimated. And then Hurricane Michael came, and then I'm sorry, Michael was the following year. Then they had one up in North Carolina shortly after that, and so it flooded the market with insurance adjusters, and it continued for another year and a half. And then really it was, hey, we have a surplus of these in the marketplace, in the job market. And so they started shifting people to desk adjusters, and they started saying, hey, we don't need field assets, because then COVID hit. And, they started, Allstate, for example, got rid of every bit of real property except for 2 locations. And they're both overseas. So they don't own any building anymore. They don't lease any building anymore.
Wow.
And so everybody in Allstate shifted to remote. That may be different now than it was back when I checked it out, but that was that's a big shift. And so what the crazy thing is, we didn't have cheaper insurance premiums with the fact that they no longer have to cover a building, but record profits every year. That said, it really has kind of directed the job market to the point where we have what I like to call weaponized incompetence. They have a warm body sitting there at the front saying, hey, yes, here's your claim, here's the information. They don't adjust anything anymore. That has to go up the chain to a team who has a little bit of authority, and then a little higher, then a little higher, and just keeps going up. And so what it ends up doing is they say, oh, well, I don't like this picture, so we're not going to replace that. That picture looks like it may not belong in this profile, or that over there, I don't see the justification for that. The story to explain the situation wasn't written well. And so a little bit gets chipped off of that claim every time it goes up for authority, because they don't have somebody fighting back for it. And that's really where I come into play, is I fight.
Obviously.
Yeah. And, you know, all that happens and you're none the wiser, right? Like, it's not like they're giving you a call saying, like, hey, we're going to remove this picture. Hey, we're going to take this part out.
They, I'll tell you, what they do is they present to you a document that's supposed to justify and supposed to show you everything that you're going to get. And it is very difficult to read. There's a couple of carriers out there that do a decent job at explaining what each part of that looks like. But it's like reading blueprints on steroids, if you ask me, because not only is it a amount of linear foot for whatever the case is, you know, for baseboard around your house, it also has the measurement for the baseboard, the price per linear foot, and the breakdown for overhead and profit, taxes, and then the total. But that total is split up into 2 separate sections, and really 3 if you consider taxes. And so it just gets convoluted. And people, what they do is they flip all the way to the very end, and they say, okay, I'm getting 18,000. Okay, I think I can make that work. Well, what they don't know is that probably was a $30,000 claim if things were justified properly. And that's really where I shine, is I have learned over the years how to justify things and how to document it well enough for the carriers to say, okay, fine.
So let's say somebody goes through and they go through this process and they get it's like 18,000. Okay, I can work with this. And then they call somebody and it's like, hey, I got 18 grand to do this. Mm-hmm. And the contractor is like, whoa, no, that is way too low to do this. What can they do at that point?
So that's an interesting thing. There's a couple of options. And option one is you can have your contractor try to argue. They're not allowed to in a lot of situations. They're not allowed to talk policy. They're not allowed to talk claims. They're allowed to say, this is the cost. Mm-hmm. And then the carrier, because they don't speak the same language, like nobody really does, the carrier sees that contractor's, one-page estimate or even detailed estimate. And it's just like, Charlie Brown, that wah, 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 wah. It just doesn't make sense to them. And they're not allowed to argue their point better. And the ones that allow it, okay, you're able to get a little bit more. You'll never really get all the way, but you get to a point where, like I said, somebody gets frustrated and gives up and just accepts it. And so I don't really want to have the carriers pay for every possible thing that's wrong, because we don't want premiums to get skyrocketed, right? But I do want to make sure that everybody's making enough money, that their family's eating, that they're there in the future. And one of the ways you can do that is hiring a public adjuster to go in and fight with the policy language and say, hey, this is what you owe. Another option is insurance appraisal. Insurance appraisal is, it's like going to a courtroom and saying, hey, that's my lawyer, that's your lawyer. They're going to have a conversation. The umpire's in the middle, that's the judge, and somebody's going to swing that gavel and say, this is what the total cost of that claim is. And it's 2 neutral third parties. And then if they can't agree, which most of the time, I don't know, I'd say it's probably 70% of the time, the neutral third parties can agree. Myself, as the appraiser for the insured, and they have another appraiser for the carrier. Mm-hmm. We can usually agree on most everything and find a way to get the money that's needed paid. If we can't, though, that's when you move to umpire, and the umpire looks at the 2, has a conversation with the 3 of you, much like we're doing here again. Yeah. And he's the gavel carrying judge and says, okay, here's where it is. And that's the other opportunity, I guess, for that. The last one is you can go to war yourself. You can argue as much as you want till you're blue in the face with that adjuster. Mm-hmm. As the policyholder, you have probably the most power. Hope you're good at that.
Do you find, Tyler, that because most people don't understand how insurance works, they don't understand the policy, do you think a lot of people just automatically take the first offer because it's just easy to do and get it done? I mean, instead of saying, let's take that extra 30 days and think through this and get somebody else in here to take a look at it.
Oh, absolutely. Or what they'll do is they'll start the project with a scope that's maybe 70% of the way complete.
Gotcha.
And say, hey, yeah, we'll get started with this. The contractor gets excited. They got a check in hand. And they start doing work. Well, unfortunately, what ends up happening is down the road, there's something that was missed. It's construction. Nothing's ever perfect. And, you know, oh, well, we sprung a leak over here. Or, hey, the cost of materials is more than what they have accounted for. So you're going to have to come out of pocket, Mr. and Mrs. Insured. And so that's really the issue there is you need somebody to know or somebody to argue the full scope up front and get a lot closer to 100%. You'll never get there 100%. I mean, it's impossible to see the future as much as I wish I could, but there's something that's going to change.
Well, you're in a compromise business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're there to go as far as you can go with the extent of your license agreement as a public adjuster working with these insurance companies, right? So, you know, let's face it, it's not a perfect world, but at least you're an advocate, you know, and you're giving the homeowner or the property owner some peace of mind that somebody's fighting for me for a change. That's good.
Absolutely.
As much hail as we have in Texas and as quick as things disappear around here from big hail, you know, whether it's especially Austin last year, I don't know if you're aware of it, this past summer, spring. I mean, Austin literally became like one streak of high-end purple, 2-inch, 3-inch hail, like back and forth across the city for months.
Yep.
They got everything. And
it was rough.
It was rough. And I'm telling you, those people down there, you know, some just had roofs replaced and they had to go file another claim.
Yep. And in some situations, file a claim, get your roof done, and then a couple of weeks, month later, have to do it again.
Exactly. Exactly. So, you know, so I can imagine that people would get leery if they don't understand how roofing works and don't understand what has to be done to a roof or doesn't understand what has to be done for water restoration or cleanup, you know, that they just sign the first thing in front of them because they want to get it done, not thinking that this could cost me money out of my pocket down the road.
Right.
So.
And unfortunately, the other side of that is contractors are eager to get moving because they know that they don't get their final check until it's
they're out with their sales teams going, let's get this done. So they're pressuring too. Gotta get this done. Those bruises are really bad.
Yeah, exactly.
So would you say here I pulled up the wrong question. So you say on the appraisal process, I mean, it sounds like this is something every homeowner should use.
Yeah, exactly. That's my opinion.
It's baked into every Texas policy. It's part of Texas law. Texas Department of Insurance requires that there is a mediation process. Oftentimes it is called the appraisal process, the appraisal clause. And so, yeah, it's not only for commercial, it's not only for situations where you've got, you know, an extremely educated person like myself saying, hey, we're under a public adjusting contract and even I can't get you to move. So we're going to move to appraisal. It's for anybody. If there's really three qualifiers, and the most used ones are, hey, the price is too low for the materials that you've discussed. You know, my shingles cost more, or hey,
right.
The shingles that you
hail resistant shale or longer warranty.
Exactly, or hey, you know what? I've seen it a lot of times where homes are in what are those? The neighborhood that's historic. I can't remember what those are called.
Historical.
I'm trying to blank on it. But where hey, it's got to look like a shingle from when this house was built. Well, the problem is that they stopped making those low end shingles that you had on it 20 years ago, and now you got to replace it. And you go from one that's, I'm going to use some fake numbers here, that's, you know, $30 a bundle to something that's $130 a bundle. That's a big step up.
Right.
You need a couple hundred bundles on your roof and you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So
historical districts are picky about their buildings.
But that's one reason, one major reason. And the other is the scope. And the scope is really what is damage and what's it going to take to put this back together. So that's that's where, hey, we are going to replace the baseboards, because no matter what we try, you pull them off, they're going to crack, they're going to break. So it's just the nature. It's a disposable item of construction in most situations. So,
okay. And so if I'm understanding you correctly, the appraisal process is whenever you come to a bit of an impasse, is like the next level up.
Absolutely. And a lot of times that has to be documented.
Mhm.
So what a lot of contractors don't realize is you accept that first claim payout, right? And that first insurance scope.
Mhm.
And you say, hey, this is great. We're going to get moving on this. But then you don't submit a argued scope, a different position from your side of things. Well, you can't actually enter appraisal yet. And so I have a lot of clients that call me up and said, hey, Miss Johnson over here needs to go to appraisal, and here's the paperwork, here's the everything that we need. Go ahead and give her a call and we'll start this process. My first question is always, hey, when did you send the carrier your updated scope? Because if it wasn't a couple weeks ago, at least, most insurance policies have a dwell time saying we need at least 10 days, at least two full weeks to assess this and get back to you on whether or not we agree. So it oftentimes will delay. So that's the other reason to kind of have a consultation up front, or go with a contractor who has a public adjuster, in their pocket, something like that.
All right.
You understand the process.
So let's throw a little bit. We have some great roofing companies we've interviewed. They're legit, companies here, and they always say that they can work directly with the insurance company. What do they mean?
They absolutely can. So they can send in paperwork and they can send their estimate and say, hey, this is what we believe it's going to cost. And they can work directly and get the check released. They can send in photos and proof that the roof was done and get that final depreciation check. There's really two, like you have the upfront cost, upfront check. The first one you get is minus your deductible and minus the depreciation, the damage that has happened to the roof over time.
Right.
And then that's what's called your ACV check, the actual cash value.
And let's make that clear. That's after the homeowner has paid his deductible.
Usually what happens, they take the deductible out of that amount.
That's fine. That's fine as long as it's the insurance company that's taking their deductible out.
Well, let's use some simple math. So if
it's confusing to a lot of people, they don't understand that.
So if we're going to have a $5,000 ACV paycheck and they're going to take $1,000 out for your deductible, you have to hand your contractor a $1,000 check.
Gotcha.
And that $5,000. So there's still money on the that's left over at that point. If it's a $10,000 claim, you're still $4,000 on the back end.
Right.
You're not getting that $1,000 from the carrier though, and you must pay your contractor.
Right. Got to pay that deductible or nothing happens. Gotcha.
I have a lot of people who think they need to pay that to the carrier as like a copay when you walk into a doctor's office.
Mm-hmm.
But you in that situation, in the medical situation, you're paying your contractor, you're paying the doctor.
But the contractor can't physically pay that bill. So then they go in and say, we'll handle your deductible. You got to be really careful with that language.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's a lot of things you can still do.
I understand, but we want to make sure the deductible is on the homeowner or the property owner, period.
So you can follow the rules.
Yeah.
So to be clear, they can submit paperwork. They can even say, hey, listen, we do need to add these few things to the scope, but they don't have the ability to argue based on the policy.
No, that's what I was going to say. They're just submitting their estimate for what they think the cost is, and insurance is either going to say yay or nay or whatever, and that's when you come in. So I'm now starting to see, so Jordan, I had the same question. Why would somebody that's losing water damage or hail or tornado or has to rebuild or fire, why would they not call a public adjuster?
Most of the time they just don't know about us.
I just don't know.
Right. That's what I'm saying, because that was going to be my follow-up point. Was the people yesterday that heard you're going to be in our group went, well, what do they do? And I'm talking about people should know.
The interesting thing, I love the courtroom analogy because there's so many there's so many shows out there, good shows out there with that are kind of centered around a courtroom. Yeah. Your contractor's kind of like a witness. Okay. They can provide material evidence. They can't argue your case though. Okay. Gotcha. They can answer kind of yes or no questions oftentimes.
Gotcha.
So you walk in there and you're looking across at the other table and they've got a lawyer and your carrier sitting over there. The lawyer is the other adjuster and you're standing there by yourself. So the question is, do you really want to handle that situation
No.
without some representation?
No, you do not.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So in claims world, sometimes you have to move to a lawyer, right? Sometimes you have to call in the big guns, but that's overkill in a lot of situations for insurance claims. A lot of times you can handle it through appraisal, or you can handle it as a public adjuster.
Yeah. And especially the way you mentioned it, right? Because continuing this, with a roofing story, like storm goes by, you get your roof inspected. Okay, you need a new roof. There was damage.
Right.
And there's how much is going to cost to repair the roof. There's your deductible. Like you got your roof, but it damaged your roof. It was rained a ton. You now have water damage.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that didn't get caught at the first time. You didn't realize that when you have somebody like you to come in and advocate, you can check for that. But then that means that you got to go back and be like, hey, no, that's not all the damage. There's more. Now we're getting to like a second level that I don't think most homeowners would even get to initially.
Right.
I think a good roofing company will spot that and communicate it with you, but some might get missed.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to the next, scale it up a little bit. You can bring somebody like you, a public adjuster, to help me represent my claim.
Right.
That is we're already at a step that I don't think many people get to. Then if they're trying to play hardball, I'm like, hey, no, that's unrelated. It's like, no, yes, it is. And it's going to be because all this stuff. You can then go to the next level up, which is go to appraisal. And now you bring in a third party to mediate this. And that's like literally taken to the courtroom. Well, not literally, but it's like going to the courtroom to do that. That's yet one more level, when I think the majority of homeowners and even business owners are stopping at here's the damage. I get my check. Now let me figure out how to come up with the rest of the money to fix this.
Right. And what a lot of homeowners don't even realize is there's so many other things that can be covered that, you're not getting paid to go out there and put an umbrella over your roof and kind of protect from the hail. But there are a lot of things that you probably did. Hey, it broke a window. Well, did you cover that window up? Well, okay, it's not a lot, but hey, you can get paid back for the plywood that you put up there and the time that you spent.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other part of this. And you're absolutely right. You can go into the courtroom with a public adjuster next to you, and we can pull the ripcord and say, hey, we need to go ahead and move to appraisal. And that's when I step back as the PA and bring in a neutral third party who's not tied to the financial outcome. They're only tied to doing what's right.
Right.
And the carrier has to do the same. And really either party can implement it, invoke it. And then that kind of is almost like those boardroom meetings where they're having a conversation about what's right, what's fair, and they come to an agreement in the end. So it's done all, for lack of a better term, behind the scenes, and there's no input from me. There's no input from the carrier. So it's supposed to be a more pure form of it. Whereas the carrier is whispering in their adjuster's ear, hey, you can't pay for X, Y, Z because that's our policy. And, I'm sitting there looking at it like, you've got to, this is why in your policy, it says this. So you're absolutely right. There is plenty of opportunity and plenty of forks in the road to kind of get things handled. Did I answer the question? I got a little lost in my
No, that's fine. And I was going to say also, we've had so many bad weather here in the last couple of years. A lot of insurance companies refuse to underwrite policies in the state, right? So now you're seeing policies maybe with not enough coverage in them, and so are you able to help somebody with that policy? In other words, can a public adjuster that's licensed actually make sure that the policy that they just were proposed actually covers what needs to be covered? Can you do that for them? Or does that have to wait till a crisis?
So I'm still bound by the policy, by the contract signed between you and the carrier,
okay,
right?
So you don't have anything to do. You can't say, I would get this added,
Sometimes.
Okay, all right.
So you mentioned that carriers are getting a little bit more tight. Some carriers back about a year and a half, 2 years ago, started pulling out of Texas entirely. Saying, hey, we're not doing any more policy in Texas. Right. And you renew annually, and so unless you're a business, you probably don't have that carrier anymore. There's a couple of them, there's a whole list.
Right.
So what they have started to do is increase your deductible. If you go back to my grandparents' era, they had deductibles that were specified dollar amounts. Maybe it's $250.
Right.
It's actually like a copay where you say, hey, I'm paying $250 and that's it. Everything else is coming out of the insurance pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've started to increase that, and it went from the low 100 to 150 to, hey, we're doing 1,000. We're doing
like health
2,000.
insurance. Yeah, got it. Okay,
Mhm.
bingo.
Well, then they moved to a percentage base, and so now it's a percentage of your home. And we all know the job market got crazy, or the home market got crazy here in
It
Texas
did.
as well.
The appraisals went up, right?
Mhm. And so that really just took more burden off of the carrier. And then
Right.
the most recent thing that they've started to do is called ACV policies, or policies that really only cover the basic necessities. It's kind of like, you see those things online about like the general insurance. It's $30 a month. What does that cover though? Because your normal insurance is $150. Well, that's the question, and that's why I advocate for, if you don't know insurance or you're not willing to research your policy and understand it, have a conversation with a PNC adjuster or PNC insurance agent. Have somebody help explain that to you.
Yeah.
Property and casualty. So
Yeah. So can you help as a public adjuster? Can you help renters if they have a policy that's a certain amount of money is required by an apartment complex, right, for you to have renter's insurance, and usually it's a pretty high amount because I want to make sure they want you to try to pay for it instead of them. Even if it's so you can be an advocate there for a renter too, correct?
absolutely, I can argue on my customers' behalf for anything that they're covered for.
Okay, good.
So if in a renter situation, you're not really responsible for the walls of the building. You're responsible for everything inside of it. And oftentimes renters policies will have, hey, you know what? You caused a fire, so we're going to go ahead and there's an additional coverage for this. It's for up to this amount. And so it will help with that.
Yeah.
And so really the goal there is just to cover the deductible for the for the place that you're renting from.
Yes. Yes. Right.
But yeah, I can absolutely help.
Okay.
Cool. That's good to know. That's another thing I wouldn't have thought about, even though you did say that you can cover anybody that's a policyholder with a case
I
number.
have the same number.
So I have another question for you.
Uh-huh.
People might be wondering, like, well, how much is it going to cost me to hire a public adjuster to hire you? You talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'm not entirely sure if that just represents your the way you work, the way the industry works. So can you walk us a little bit through how that works?
Absolutely. In the state of Texas, there are limits, right? So for public adjusting, you cannot charge more than 10% of the claim value, period. Some public adjusters operate on an hourly basis up to that limit. Some public adjusters operate on a percentage base, and oftentimes they charge 10% just because that's the limit and that's reasonable. The truth is it's sometimes difficult, especially for large PA firms, to operate multi-state with office staff and buildings and things like that on only 10% of the claim, especially with the long life cycle that some of these claims will have. And so mine's a little lower, but that's because I'm the little guy. I'm a big guy, but I'm a little guy.
So you just stay within the parameters of what the law requires. So
yes, sir.
You can fix your rate within that 10% or whatever that is of the claim.
And now, what would you say is the percentage increase from using a public adjuster and not using one?
Oh, I'd love to answer this with an actual real example. So I'll redact a little bit of information here. But I had a client that started out, had I guess a mini tornado is the best way to argue or explain what it is. But it didn't touch down. It just kind of swirled. And Herdy, you probably know more about what that actually is. But it swirled across the sky, bent a whole bunch of stuff, threw stuff around, but didn't ever actually touch the ground. And so with that, it wasn't reported as a touchdown hurricane. Well, they got a claim. They have a farm. It's about 10 acres. And they had a claim that I think paid out like 12, 14 grand. They had a $20,000 deductible. And so for wind and hail, of course. Yeah, they had a really high wind and hail specifically deductible, and this tornado is considered a wind claim. So they didn't get paid anything. Well, I've been working with them, and we've already gone up a fair amount, but I expect by the time this is over, we'll be sitting at about 350,000.
You know, a lot of
Wow.
times an F0 tornado will not show a condensation funnel on the ground. It swirls on the ground, but it doesn't pick up enough debris to make it you see it. So
Right.
it's called a condensation funnel, where it comes down, but you don't see it on the ground. Then there's others that come halfway down. They don't ever get to the ground. But when you have damage on the ground, then whoever comes out and looks at that damage should be able to determine, based on how stuff stirred up, whether it's circular or straight line wind, right? So yeah, cool.
And the really fun thing is, I got the chance on that one specifically to fly my drone way up and took a look at it, and you can see a path through his property where several trees
Right.
were knocked
And
over.
that's another indication that nothing's going on outside that path. Right.
Mhm.
It's just evidence. So
Kept
you
on
don't,
going.
you don't see it on the ground. But you see, it just doesn't pick up enough to show up dirt or anything, but it's there.
Now, I want to underscore, because I think Herdy's so excited about the weather phenomena that missed the the change in the claim. 14,000,
Yes.
because they're like, no, this is not even a tornado, and this is just wind and hail.
Yeah.
Crazy deductible, to actually getting down to the proper damage assess, which is now looking like 350,000.
And what's interesting about that is I wrote a $400,000 estimate, knowing full well that I was going over limit, because I wrote for what is actually true representation of the damage. And I said, hey, listen, I told the adjuster, I was like, hey, listen, I understand that we're over limit on my estimate, but I wanted to provide for you everything that you need to justify yourself to your higher ups as you move this through the approval process. And like I said, we've already moved up a fair amount, and I've got a couple more months to finish this one out, but it's looking like we're going to stop at that $350,000 limit.
That's good. Congratulations.
That's great. Okay, so the thing that I hope we get out of people listening to this is, okay, you're listening to this right now and you've had a denial letter, or you're looking at your check now, you're like, oh man, I wonder if they give me the runaround. What should they do?
I always advocate for grabbing a second opinion somewhere. Your contractor may be able to give you that, but what you need is a subject matter expert, somebody who knows what they're talking about. Sometimes people go to their agents and say, hey, what the heck? I've been paying my premiums to you forever. But even your agent, they understand the policy at a generic base level. Most of them don't understand the claims process because they're far removed from it.
Mm-hmm.
You need a public adjuster's input on that. And, like I said, my particular consultation is free. Most PAs that I know and work with in the area, there's really not that many of us, but most of them in the area will talk to you about your claim without any issues, without any cost, without any charges at all, and explain to you, okay, well, you got a denial letter because of X, Y, Z. And there's plenty of paths to go around that. One of them recently, the claim got filed under hail. It's a wind damage claim. So I said, hey, you know what? You're absolutely right. They denied you for hail because there's no hail damage on your roof. It's all wind. It tore off sheets of shingles. So you need to refile your claim under wind. And that worked. And again, I didn't get paid. It's not contingent upon anything. I just gave them some advice. They moved on. And last I heard, that one's moving forward.
That's awesome. Well, if you're watching this, we threw Tyler's website there, but let me throw your QR code too.
Oh yeah, let me drop this off here, Jordan. Hang on.
So
There's a QR code with all his information, which we'll be posting again.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that's great. You could just scan it, or if you're watching this on your phone, you can screenshot this, and then when you go inside of your pictures, you can actually click on this.
And I will put a link in the YouTube description.
Yeah, that's
cool.
Probably the easiest way. Is that leads you to my digital, business card, I guess.
Footprint, yeah. Your footprint, yeah.
Just
cool.
Nice. Get all your contacts there. Tyler, dude, this was awesome. I had no idea this was so involved, and that honestly, like, we as policyholders have a lot more power than I thought we did.
You really have a lot of power, but it takes knowledge to exercise that power. And that's where I let the mechanics work on my car. I don't know anything about that anymore. I grew up being that guy, but let the claim mechanic work on your claim, you know?
Yeah,
What I
exactly.
do for a living.
All right, guys. Tyler, thank you. There's a lot of people today that not only that listen live, that'll listen on demand, that'll finally go, oh, I get it, because I just don't think people realize they even had that option, and now they know.
Mhm.
And that's for any kind of property holder that has an insurance policy.
I'm going to say, I think this is going to be a $10,000 show, at least. If you watch this show and you ever have a claim, you're probably going to net at least 10,000 higher.
And we only take 10%.
Absolutely. I think
You
that,
just became an automatic sponsor.
I like
Thank
it.
you very much. No, I'm kidding. Tyler,
I
thank
think
you, sir.
Absolutely.
So sit tight with this, because after it's over, we want to make sure your individual recording gets uploaded to the server. So sit tight. Guys, want to thank you for being on the Mansfield Buzz. Jordan, great job on the interview questions and diving deep into this public adjusting world, which is really cool in Texas. He is licensed, by the way. I did put his license number in the tag, so make sure that you do know that. That's important, because that's required in the state of Texas by law. So there's some businesses that aren't required to have a license in the state of Texas, which is really a shame. But besides, we won't talk about that today. All right. So with that said, we are one more week out. We got December 18th. Susan Smith will be with us. She's going to talk about all the stress and strain of just what holidays do to people going through a divorce. And so that's all she's going to focus on. And I'm sure Jordan and I will just be sitting back for the next hour just listening in. So it's all good.
Taking in the
That's right. We'll just be, we'll both have our hot chocolate ready to go. And then after that, we're back on January 8th. Jordan and I are talking about some things we might announce later next year. We're going to think into some things we want to do. But Tyler, thank you for being a great guest. We'll see you guys next week on the Mansfield Buzz. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Bye, y'all.